Namaste. This is Yoga Therapy Podcast, and I'm your host, Shira, yoga teacher, yoga therapist, and Ayurvedic wellness educator. In these conversations with experts in the field of yoga therapy, you'll find out what it is and how it can help you and your loved ones to reclaim well-being. We'll touch on physical as well as mental health, physiology, emotions, women's health, spiritual well-being, goddesses, and self-development in the fullest sense. Listening to another story can change ours, so thank you for showing up, and let's begin this journey together. So, hello everyone. Today we are joined by this amazing woman, Amanda Monnier. She has her bachelor's in psychology, in criminal justice. She's a certified nutritional coach, an emotion code practitioner, a yoga teacher, and a magnetic mind coach. So thank you for coming on, Amanda. I'm really happy to be speaking to you tonight.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so grateful to be here and just excited for whatever's meant to come through today. So thank you.
Yeah, so this is kind of a spontaneous talk between me and Amanda. So tell us your story. Tell us how you came to yoga and your journey as a healer. So I just want to make clear, because this is a yoga therapy podcast, Amanda's not a yoga therapist, but I think with her background, she's more than qualified to do the work as a yoga therapist.
Well, thank you. So yeah, I'll kind of condensed version, right? Our stories and our journeys can be lots of twists and turns. So I had kind of done all the things that you're told to do, go to school, pick a major, get the job, all the things. I ended up in a 6-year long career in law enforcement. I was a probation officer. Mm-hmm. And during that time, I had a spiritual awakening of consciousness, whatever you want to call it, a couple years in. And this stemmed from the catalyst was this breakup that I had. And it really activated a lot of density, a lot of darkness in me. And it was so much deeper than just this experience. It was going back to childhood and all the things that I had experienced, the stories that I told myself. A lot of it was around just abandonment wounding and unworthiness and just simply feeling not good enough. And it truly was just a disconnection from myself. So I went through this very painful process. I hid in my house for like a couple weeks when this happened. I just cried and I cried. And it was kind of the first time I'd been really cracked wide open. And so I had always felt as a little girl that there was just like something that I was missing. Like there's something that they're just not telling us. Why are we doing all these things that we're told to do, kind of going about life in this robotic sort of way? And I just didn't fully understand it because nobody was talking about it, but I knew intrinsically that there was something going on, something else going on.
Yeah.
So this situation with the awakening really allowed me to I kind of started on that external search that later led to more of an internal journey. So I started reading the books and listening to the podcasts and going to the healers and getting the readings and all the things. And I started my yoga practice, and it just kind of it really did help, but I was still hiding in the spiritual closet. It was like this part of myself that I didn't really share with people, or if I did, it was a very select couple of people. And especially being in a very masculine dominated field in law enforcement, it was like I was all out in my masculine, and that was how I stayed safe all these years. And it was just this very interesting experience, just kind of navigating this newfound part of myself and this newfound thing, and waking up and going to work basically in the Matrix every day.
Oh, wow. How do you mean in the Matrix? It just felt so strange, or?
Yeah. So when I say Matrix, it's just kind of it's almost like this asleep mental prison, if you will. And it's again, all the conditionings that are placed on us. And this starts at very young. So yes. It starts, in the womb, we're already kind of getting the thing.
Some good stuff to talk about.
Yeah. I love it.
Okay. Yeah. No, I agree.
Yeah. So it was just because how I would explain in a very short version on what awakening and, quote unquote ascension is just our ability to hold more light and the releasing of all this density that isn't you and never was. So it's the stories that we've played out again and again that simply aren't true. The characters that we play, the costumes we put on, these archetypes we play that just aren't in alignment with our highest, with our true self. And so this journey is just a beautiful one of coming home to the self, is how I really explain it, because that was what it was. And it just like, as I went through this process and I left that career and ended up moving and selling my home and starting this healing business, it just all kind of started to come together. And it was, I'm not going to lie, it was very messy. There were a lot of tears, but I also wouldn't have it any other way.
Yeah, no, I know what you mean. I've been contemplating this in my life the last year or two. Like, should I just go into normal work and screw what I love, screw my passion and maybe earn more and be able to provide for my daughter? Or should I just keep doing what I love doing, even if I'm not earning what I want to be earning? But I wanted to ask about this awakening. So were there moments in the awakening that were also light? Because it sounds like there's a lot of darkness. So you say because you cracked open, the light could come in and the darkness could be released. But I imagine there's also points where you really have like spiritual experiences quite deep. Yeah,
absolutely. It was a combination of both. Okay. And so there were these moments where I would feel this sense of this peace and this freedom and just this inner knowing that I was on the right track. And it's an interesting process because those of us who are going through this right now, sometimes it can feel a little alone. Sometimes you can feel like, what am I doing? Am I crazy? Because what we're doing is we're creating the new templates and ushering in the new paradigm. So it's not in maybe if it was done before it was ancient, like I know there's a lot of things that we're bringing back from like our inner wisdom, but it's like we're bringing in this new thing.
And also it's a new context. We have to keep changing with the times. And the scariest thing for me was having a child and not having an instruction manual, not knowing what to do. And this is kind of the same when you try to create a business from your passion. It's really walking into new territory, and step by step, you don't know where you're going to land. Sometimes it goes well. And it goes well for a couple of months or a couple of years, or maybe like the woman I spoke, I think yesterday or the day before, what's her name? Charlotte Khan. She said it just all fell into place, but it's not that way for everyone. So sometimes we feel guided and things just happen. And like you say, I've had many moments where because it doesn't fall into place, I'm like, well, maybe this is not the path for me. Maybe this is not what I'm supposed to be doing, because we hear these stories all the time that if you're on the right path, life just becomes easy. But I think that's a load of spiritual bypassing BS. And I think we need to be more honest about that also as therapists and mentors and teachers, that life is just messy. That is, and especially now, especially in the context of present day.
Yeah. I've learned that it's like a combination of both in my experience, because I've come to understand when these things happen that maybe bring up this painful part, or we call it a trigger, an activation, or whatever it is, that it's actually like God, source, universe, whatever you want to call it, showing me this thing inside of me or in my energy field, because our energy extends outside of our body, outside time, space, all these things. So it's showing me something that is here to help me, rather than life is like trying to torment me. Because every time I pause,
it's a lesson. They're teachings, but sometimes I'm sick of the teachings,
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
It's like, please give me a break.
Yep. I feel that entirely.
I want to enjoy life.
The most powerful thing I found to really navigate this is just presence. And it's so simple, because sometimes we as humans, the ego, obviously, and the unconscious, their job is to keep us safe and in this cyclical pattern, because if we're in the cyclical pattern, we don't have a death, so to speak, because if we're letting something go, we're letting a part go, we're letting an emotion go. It's like, whoa, this is new and unknown. And the unknown for humans is scary.
Mm-hmm. I think for anyone, for animals too, it's scary.
Yeah. Yeah, true. My dog doesn't like not knowing what's going on or when his next meal is coming. Yeah.
Yeah. No, you're right. That's a good way to describe it. Yeah. Yeah. So, how do these beliefs then affect the way we face the unknown? I think that's a big part of why humans find it so difficult to get excited about the unknown. We could be excited about not knowing what's happening instead of fearful, where there's a lot of fear. And I think the way our culture and our society and patriarchy have kind of mapped things out, we should be knowing where we're going all the time. We should have control. And that unpredictability makes us very anxious.
Yeah, which continues to create these structures where it's taking us away from presence and it's taking us away from the now. And what I would say in regards to like the beliefs, I think it depends on, is the belief truth to you? Is the belief in alignment with your soul's highest? Is it a 10 out of 10 for you? So if it's not, then it's not congruent and it's going to cause discord. It's going to cause resistance, because if we're living in a belief and we have this belief system that, and these things go so deep because they're tied to different part personalities. They're tied to the emotional response. They're embedded in the DNA, the cells. It can be tied to our ancestors. It could be passed down. So they're very multifaceted, but we can make it simple when something is showing up and we're feeling some sort of way that feels either expansive or constricted. Like if it feels really light and good, or if it feels really heavy, that's an indicator on something that we would want to maybe take a look at and shine that flashlight on and shine that light on. And we can choose something else, because a lot of this process, yeah, there are ways and healing modalities and tools we can use, but we can also just pause and acknowledge what's showing up, because even the acknowledgement and the willingness to be present with it and sit with it and hear it and not judge it. Because even if it's like, a lot of us use the words like the shoulds and all that, but there's so much shame tied to this language that we use, to where it's like, well, how would we treat a child if a child was showing up and saying, oh, like, I'm really sad, this, and this happened? Would it be something where we would go, oh, I'll talk to you later. I can't be bothered by this.
Well, it's not that bad. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Kind of thing, shutting them down. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. But I think you're right. Oh, wow. It's a beautiful sky. Sorry. It's been so gray for the last 6 weeks. It's like, wow, it's pink outside.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah. Yeah. But the emotions are a big part of that. And also, I think what you were saying, just being present with whatever arises is the transformational factor. You don't actually need to do anything, but just holding space for that is so vital. And it's really an art to sit with the difficult and the suffering and the pain and the resistance. And
it is. It's definitely a practice. It is. And I've just come to understand, though, that it is so much easier than this either avoidance or, we're even taught and trained. It's like, you have to be busy and productive. So if we're busy and productive, we're 10 steps ahead of the present, and we got our to-do list of 10 things to do. And the frequency of busy and productive, like, it's not very high vibrational. It feels very dense. It feels very, fast-paced, masculine, like just move. And especially for us as the feminine, I am just learning that this energy of surrender and this allowing us to be led by our hearts and by God and by, healthy, whole, healed masculine. It's there's something so powerful about this, because another thing that has really caused a lot of issues are these inversions in polarity, where we have the harden the feminine and soften and feminize the men agendas going on here to create these distortions to where everybody's like, well, I don't know how to act. You don't know how to act. And I was in that. I was basically a dude. Like I was playing that character. And so it's been so beautiful to really step into my feminine and not be hard on myself when I find myself, because we both have feminine and masculine within us. Mm-hmm. But as this, like,
when did this happen? When did this start to happen, that you discovered the feminine? How long ago?
It's been over this process of this, awakening and consciousness for me, but to where I've really started to be intentional about it. It's been probably within the last year, because the feminine is all about receiving, and we can't receive when we're.
It's very difficult for me. I had the same. Like, my burnout was also a total dive into family of origin, trauma, all the emotional stuff. The same, like you were talking about, belief systems and conditioning and fears. And it was also realizing that I have always used my masculine side. I have always been go, 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 do, escape, 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 conquer, conquer, conquer. It was never about just relaxing in. I remember looking at friends of mine who were very lazy and receptive, and I was so jealous of them. But at the same time, I kind of thought they were inferior to me, because we all have this concept of being productive as being the best way to be in our society, in our present day. Yeah. And so the feminine, for me, it was also a journey of learning to heal my mother's side. I have a wonderful mother, but we don't understand each other. And therefore, it's been a difficult relationship. And I love her the best when I live on the other side of the planet from her. And it's the same for her. We get on really great when we see each other once every 2-3 years. But that also showed me the damage that has been done through the female line from mother to daughter, that is so inherent in not just, I've seen it in all my clients, in all my students, in all my friends. The mother-daughter relationship is complex because women are so oppressed, they don't even realize they're oppressed. And then the only way they have control is either to go along with this male predominant development, or to manipulate and play the martyr and use emotional control to kind of get some say or power structure into their lives. So that was for me very clear in the last that time, 2018. For a whole year, I just had to go through that. And I was living with my mother in a 1-bedroom apartment with my mother and daughter at the time. It was really like, can I see it any clearer? Yeah.
Yeah. And I was reading something yesterday, and it was all around like what you just mentioned, and how like emotions, when we have this like trigger response, but yet we want to like vomit it onto somebody else or make someone else responsible for it. It's like, I've found that it's, if it's coming up inside of me, at least for me, what I found that is helpful is I just take a step back, because if I'm in like my emotional reaction, I'm not necessarily responding. I'm just allowing that pain pattern. Yeah, I'm allowing that pain pattern to just run the show.
Totally.
So, which doesn't allow it to actually be heard.
Yeah.
It's quite the opposite.
Yeah, because there's no space. So it's just a repetitive thing. But I think the beautiful thing about trauma is that it just repeats itself until the occasion arises that it can find the space and the presence. Because I think one of the most important things for healing trauma is not just doing it alone, also having the conscious awareness of another human being in the space or in that time of your life to see the process, to witness with you, because the trauma occurs, especially if we're talking about emotional, because emotions only occur in conjunction with other humans or social creatures. It's a social thing. So that's also the way to undo it. And I think if we can see the beauty of trauma as just an attempt of the body mind trying to create another situation where we can heal from it rather than a trigger. Yeah.
Absolutely. And I had that experience very profoundly as far as the repeat patterns. And I've learned not to even shame the fact that it's coming up, because I hear a lot people like, oh, I thought I healed this. That's another way of shaming yourselves. It's another way of us shaming ourselves. So we don't have to look at it like that. But I had this abandonment, unworthy pattern. And so my parents divorced when I was about 6 years old, and my dad left. I mean, someone had to leave, I guess, in the situation, right? They're splitting. So, but my perception of it as a little girl was that I'm not good enough. Like, if my dad doesn't even love me and won't stay, like, who will? And just felt very unworthy. And this was my perception of what was going on and what I was able, the story that I told myself, and, all the things, because when we have, parents that are in their unconscious and they're not in this, conscious space, then it creates these ripple effects through the family. So when I started my dating years, when I started dating, this pattern started to show up again and again and again. And I was like, oh man, same man, different face. Like, so it would lead to me. And it was like trauma bonding. I'm aware that it was trauma bonding, to where I unconsciously would choose people that it was like, I tried to convince, and this was very unconscious because I was very mindful not to be like clingy or any of that, but it was so unconscious that I would choose individuals who weren't able to be there with me. They weren't able to have a relationship. And so what would happen is they would disappear. They would break up with me. They would leave, because it was this pattern showing itself to me again and again and again, or they'd be these painful breakups. And then this same energy would come up to the surface. And it wasn't until last year that I was able to really surrender to this fully, and this part and this inner child work. And it was a solid 3 or 4 months of just purging, like physical pain, emotional pain. And it was so painful, but I also would not have it any other way, because I had that was a part of me for 30 years.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it was to the point where there was at one point, if I didn't know what was going on, I probably would have thought I was having a heart attack, because it felt like there was a knife in my heart physically. I couldn't get out of bed it was 3 days with that sharp pain in my heart. And so it's just so interesting too, how the physical body always is trying to get our attention on things. The little aches and pains in the hips and the shoulders and the neck, the tightness, it's always there's always something deeper for us there. And it's actually a blessing, because the body's like, excuse me,
Yes,
excuse me, I'm still here.
It's so amazing, isn't it? Once we start to accept that the body and the mind are just intelligent and trying to create the best life that we could live with. Yeah, I think it's so incredible. It's just shouting out, hello, hello. And then it gets louder and louder.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Cancer, all that stuff doesn't happen overnight.
No,
like the issues, all the issues that people are having. And that's why even with stuff going on the planet, it's like, to me, that's just not even in my reality. And we can actually choose that. And it's so interesting how when we really raise our frequency and our vibration, and what I mean by that is really just releasing the density and all the things that aren't you and never were, then we can really just see the life through this lens of our highest, like our higher self. And the way I describe it is I truly feel we are all a unique expression of God, source, universe, and that energy is coming through us. We're one with it, where there's no separation. Like we're told from the very beginning, you're a sinner, you're separate from God, you have to do X, Y, and Z to attain this. And so it already creates these barriers from what is us. We are God, we are that. And so when we understand this, it allows us to change everything.
Yeah, I agree. It's so important to just point out that fact that even my parents, they weren't Catholic or religious or Jewish. Like my dad is Jewish, my mother is Catholic, but they didn't have any religion. But still, it is in your language, it is in the society that you are guilty before proven innocent. And it's just in our whole way of living, even education, even the best schools, there is always that aspect. Like I have troubles with some of the teachers all the time because they don't even realize they're being sexist. I have to point it out again and again. That remark was sexist, and you've said it several times. No, well, I didn't mean it like that. Yeah, but it doesn't matter. My child will internalize it like that, and so will all those other girls. And you can't keep repeating it. And I've had to say this so many times. And there's all these kinds of things. And it's just so deep, and people don't realize that it's there.
Yeah. And sometimes again, it goes back to these, it's genetic, it's in the DNA because it's been passed down.
But DNA is just 2% of the effects that we see, and nurture is 98%. So it's such a small deal of what we're seeing. So it's not, I don't think, I mean, I agree with you, but it's an excuse. We have 98% ability to change it. So it's huge.
Oh, I believe we have the ability to actually change our DNA too.
Completely. Yeah, completely agree. I've got books on that. But what did I want to say? Yeah, and I think that's a big part of patriarchy and this whole thing of suppressing and infantilizing people. We're all infantilized and waiting for some leader, for some person, for some scientist to come up with an answer, when we should be doing the steps every single day, every day of our lives, and that's why I love yoga. It's called a practice because you have to keep practicing. People who meditate, they meditate their whole lives. It's not that you reach enlightenment and that's it. You stop your practice. You have to keep going.
Yeah.
And
the hierarchy thing that you mentioned, it is just this structure to continue to have people look for answers to authority figures, or, that someone else knows better for you than what you know is your truth.
Like doctors, they have so much authority, and people just give their lives into the hands of people who know very little, actually, because I've heard from doctors, they study 7 hours of nutrition in their 4 years of study, which just goes to show most people who are health fanatics have studied 300-400 hours of nutrition, just on their own, because it's their curiosity and interest. And then we're not believed because you don't have that university diploma. And this really irritates me. It's like, and that's ignorance, not realizing that a university degree doesn't authorize anyone to anything. You can still be an arrogant jerk.
Yeah. And I think that's part of the structures of what is changing, because there are a lot of us that are really stepping into this more conscious work, whether it be, consciousness in any type of like healing modalities, conscious medicine, conscious, nutrition, really, because I don't believe there's one size fits all. Like even in the healing space, you have people that are like, this is the only way, which is also nonsense, because it's whatever is right in front of you. It's whatever works best for you. For some people, it might be yoga. For others, it might be lifting weights. For others, it might be meditation. For some, it might be being in nature, maybe all of them. Yeah. But it's just so important for us to take what resonates and to shelf the rest, because we're all a unique piece of the puzzle. And so we're all bringing something different in our own flavor. that is part of this expansiveness. And so we've all had different experiences and different things we've learned. So for us to, say this is the only way, right? It's just also another form of this is better than this. And it's simply not true. Yep. And I feel that we're coming to those places to where we're kind of creating more of a community. It's more of an energy of community and
doing it together. And find out it's a process. There's not one pathway for everything. And I think this is definitely growing in the Netherlands. There's a few professors or professionals who are coming together and trying to make hubs, and that we move back from centralized government to decentralized regional communities, and that people are working together and finding ways to trade and barter again to remove.
It's really so interesting to see how that pans out too, like where we're going to be in the next 5 to 10 years, because
I think it'll take a bit longer because the structure is so deep and there's a lot of people still profiting from this structure. Like even the upper middle class is still safe, I think the middle class, the lower class is being hollowed out. So they're really angry. And the middle lower class is starting to get hollowed out financially and economically. And that's when that starts to collapse, I think there'll be more movement. But there's still a lot of people who are well off from this system.
Yeah. And the interesting thing that, I've come to understand, like, it just feels like things are so accelerated right now. So even time as we know it isn't even, to me, time's not linear anymore, because
but it never was.
No. Exactly. Because it's all a bunch of inversions. And, even with the time stuff, it's like we can, really shift time by making these decisions, and shifting time, collapsing timelines is you leaving a toxic relationship, you leaving a job, and you following those nudges and saying, having it be when it's actually a no, saying no rather than saying yes. And so like, that's the type of stuff that continues to build on this embodiment of who you truly are and your ability to really be in that expansive energy and move towards what it is your truth is and what you're here to do, even if that's just, being in your light, because that helps raise the frequency of the collective as well. And so, I think what we're seeing on the collective, it's like a collective dark night of the soul going on. And we have these internal dark nights of the soul. So, when we have these different triggers and activations coming up based on what's going on, it's something to take a look at. And I mean, there's no telling, like, a lot of the structures are falling apart because people they're asking questions, and they're really getting to the point to where they're like, gosh, is this truth? Because it's right in our faces now. It's on stage now.
Yes, that's very true. It's definitely coming to the front, and we're being faced with many things, and that's a good thing. It's a cleansing. It's a way to face and renew, because there's no way we're going to renew anything or create good structures if we can't see clearly what's going on. And it's not pretty stuff that's coming up, but
yeah. But it's almost like, even though it's messy, it's like, well, it kind of had to happen, because we can't build a foundation for where we're headed on all of this bed of lies and all these control mechanisms and all the structures that have been in place for so long.
Yeah. And it's just so short term. I mean, look at our planet. We really have to do something now. It's not 30 years. We haven't got 30 years time to start turning things around.
Yeah. And I think it's just kind of, as more people continue to wake up again, like, it just shifts exponentially. And it almost feels like, I can at least say from my experience, like, I don't feel like I'm getting a lot of breaks as far as it's one after the next on like these things I'm supposed to let go of.
Layers. I feel like I'm getting layers. Like, I'm just coming out of one like challenge, and there's already one, I can already see the next one layered on top coming along. It's like, whoa, hold on, put your seatbelts on.
Yeah. I've had the same experience where I'm like, oh, can I get like a day? Can I have
or even an hour? But I mean, I know in the core of us, like you're talking about, essentially we are God. For me, that is life, nature, the force within us is pure bliss, love, power, desire to live fully. And so I know it's all possible. And even having my child and doing it all alone, you are challenged constantly to see how much more you are capable of. And I think that's another thing through this infantilization, is we don't realize how powerful we really are. You know, the potential each of us has when we just accept that life is work. You know, I think that's another myth we have, is that holidays, weekends, the afternoon off, you know, all this kind of like relaxation or not doing anything is the goal. But the goal is working, is doing, creating, which takes energy but gives energy as well.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's nice. Like, I feel like I've learned that it's like this dance with the universe. Cause some days I get this spark of energy and I'm like, oh God, like I just want to create, like I want to, you know, do all these things in my business. I'm getting downloads. And then other days I'm like, I just want to meditate and I want to go to the ocean. Cause sometimes I've learned too, it's like in those pauses is when we get the download for that thing, because we're listening, we're in that receiver mode rather than we're in, you know, do, where we're not so available to receive the messages if we're not in that pause listening. And it's just, for me, I've just learned that it's just kind of this balance on listening to how am I feeling today? Like checking in with my body, because we, you know, we're in these meat suits. So we may as well, like have a beautiful relationship and and reconnect, because so many of us, and I was too, are disconnected from our physical vessels and our body. And it can be through all the things that have happened to where I can see why, because I had these experiences of, I don't even want to be here through all the, you know, traumatic experiences or the pain and whatnot. You get to the point where you're just like, you know, is it even worth it? But if, you know, you're listening and you're in that place, I would just like, in this moment, just even putting a hand on the heart and just breathing through that and just knowing that, you know, you are divinely guided and supported, and it does get better. It does. Believe me, it does. It doesn't always feel like it, but it does.
Yes. Yes. We are incredibly resilient and capable, and the body is constantly regenerating. You know, it's trying to create the chemicals and create balance. And that's why it's so important to, like you said, check in with yourself. And it's funny, you just mentioned putting your hand on your heart actually regulates the whole physiological system within seconds, because you're connecting to that part of you that is the essence of your soul. Like we point to ourselves and we always point to our heart. We don't point to our nose or our forehead, you know, because we know the self is in the heart. And it's the first organ that has been created when we're embryo, is the heart. And then the brain starts to form. And when the brain is formed, it pushes the heart right into the center of the little new creature. It's so incredible. When you just read about anatomy and physiology, you're like, wow, we are just magic. We are magic. And that's what we got to believe in. And yeah, and like you said, there are moments, even my daughter has moments now, she's very young, but there's moments where she says, I just don't want to live, or I don't see the point, you know? And that's saddening. And there's a lot of kids who feel like that, but she's also comes out of that, you know? And I think it's important to not take ourselves too seriously, not take the situation too seriously. Yes, it's serious. Yes, we do our best, but also watch a comedy, make jokes, play fight with each other, have a dog, for example, who's always smiling at you, who has no clue what's going on.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And circling back to what you mentioned about just the creation of like our cells and our heart and our brain, it's like our body, if our body is that innately like the wisdom. So don't you think that the body could also, if we talk to it, could help us release the pain and the trauma and in connection with our higher self, our own source connection. Like, it's so wise. If you get like a cut, the body is going to do what it needs to do to heal that wound. So the body can,
without your conscious effort.
Yeah, exactly. You don't have to force it. It's just going to happen. So even just acknowledging that I don't know everything. And that's been one of the most humbling experiences on this awakening of consciousness. The more I wake up, the more I don't know. The more I don't know. And I think that the more we can really say that and come to a place of, this is the best I've come up with in this moment. But that's also kind of one of the pitfalls of like, subscribing to different like gurus and authorities. It's like, no, like you are your own authority, you're your own, guide, mentor, and then you can get support.
Author. You are the author of your life.
Yeah.
And you can write the story you want to write. It does take work, but it's a choice.
Yep. Yeah. It definitely is. And I agree with you too on, you got to be able to laugh about this stuff and have a good time and find the humor in it too, because life isn't supposed to suck. It's not supposed to suck.
Well, it does sometimes, but that's okay.
It does sometimes. It does sometimes.
And laughing about it. Like this morning, I just had to look at Monty Python. I don't know if you know Monty Python.
I've heard of that before.
Young.
I don't know.
Before that. Yeah, no, but just they're ridiculous, but 40 years later they're still funny. They do all these crazy, hilarious, ridiculous sketches, and it's just a piss take on everything in life.
I love it. So good. You gotta be able to be silly and goofy.
Yeah, definitely. So let me ask you, seeing you've done this emotional code work, I read the book. I found it a little bit iffy, but I do agree we need to work with emotions. How do you see emotions? How do you work with emotions, and how do you explain them as being so powerful? Because they are very powerful. They are huge motivators to the way we relate, live, act.
Yeah. Yeah. So I will even say this, as far as like certifications and stuff, I'm coming to a place to where I'm like, it doesn't mean anything to me. Yeah, it doesn't matter. I don't even really, I don't identify as an emotion code practitioner, any of that. Like it's on my credentials, but I'm just coming to realize this is so much bigger than all of that. Mm-hmm. And there's no piece of paper that can give you the credentials of this divine innate wisdom that is available to come through. So I just want to kind of point that out first, that anytime I am working with someone, I'm connecting straight to source. Mm-hmm. And the healing is actually not coming from it. I'm tuning into things, but the healing actually comes from the client's higher self and their own source connection. So it's not like I'm going in and manipulating energy. I'll feel into things and that sort of thing, and, get intuitive hits and whatnot. And for me, I feel these things deeply in my body. My body is very sensitive to energy. And so I can feel what's going on in someone else by just getting their permission to tune into the field. So speaking of emotions, if everything carries a vibration, a frequency, then I think we can all agree that the frequency of love feels a lot lighter and more high vibrational than the frequency of shame or guilt or fear, that sort of thing. Mm-hmm. So when we're working with this energy, it always does come back to this presence of what's showing up in the now, because even if it's a past event, if it's showing up in the now, it's in the now. It can be something that happened a long time ago, and we can actually go back to those situations, because if time's not linear, we can go back to those events and we can do what I refer to as a change history. Like, what is this part? Maybe it's an inner child thing. What is this with our wisdom now? How can we show up for this little child that didn't have what they needed at that time? And we can actually go back and we can rectify the situation just by holding space in the proper way of what's needed, because it's all about like, where is this person at on their journey, and what is showing up for them right now. So again, so simple as the emotions, it's like just closing your eyes, being available for what is showing up without judgment, because oftentimes we go to the judgment. Well, I shouldn't feel this way. Or, the shame is coming up and it's like, well, no, but this, no, but that. And it's like, well, can we just close our eyes and just say, okay, body, I'm feeling tightness in my throat. I'm just breathing into that tightness. Okay. I'm feeling this emotion of just frustration and breathing into that. And it brings such a different energy to it because we're not trying to fix it. We're not trying to solve it because there's nothing to fix or solve. It just wants to show up so it can be felt, sensed, heard, whatever the thing is. And then it can just go. It can release because that's it. It's when we have these things that are suppressed, it's like we didn't maybe have the tools. We weren't able to digest it. Children can't digest these large bouts of trauma. Oftentimes it comes up and it's traumatic and they're like, whew, and we clench and we suppress. And so,
sorry, we just hold as long as we can't verbalize. So it doesn't even have to be children. It can be adults. But if we cannot verbalize and communicate the emotion in some way or form, we're not expressing it. So it's not an emotion. Emoting is output. Feeling is input. So something happens, we feel, and then from that feeling, an emotion arises. And we need that to go out, whether it's just sitting with the feeling and breathing into it. It's like you said, it's released. So it's a charge of energy. By the sounds of what you're saying, it's a charge of energy that needs to move through us and out, whether we communicate it. And as children, we can't communicate it unless our parents talk to us about how are you feeling? What are you feeling? The sensations, is it heavy inside? Is it cold? Is it constricted? Does it feel flowing, open, warm, whatever it is?
Yeah. And even sometimes not knowing. So sometimes something like
for a child, it's important to give them some tools by talking about what are you feeling? How does it sense? And I think that's something that you pointed out that I think is important. Is it is a sensation in the body. Yeah. That we can hold. Yeah. Definitely. But you were going to say something.
Now I lost my train of thought because I was listening. I don't remember what I was going to say. Oh, I was going to say, sometimes I've noticed even for myself that something will come up and I don't even, because the mind loves to assign meaning to things, but I'll feel it and I'm like, I'm not quite sure what this is. And then I'll even just ask for help, higher self, God, like, is there any thing that I'm being guided to tune into or to see here? Or is it just something that I can just be present for? And just even asking if I don't know, it's like, maybe we don't always have to know, or we don't always have to, the mind again loves to assign all the labels and meanings to things. And maybe we don't need to know. Maybe there's some times where it does want us to go a little deeper in acknowledging a lesson or acknowledging a pattern or really bringing that conscious awareness to the thing. But maybe sometimes it doesn't have to be. And so it's all just kind of it's like what's showing up for you to do and be with even.
Yeah. Very important. Yeah. Just like now we're just being with each other without having an answer or anything to say. Yeah. Oh, Amanda, this is lovely. Is there anything you really want to speak about still that you feel we haven't touched on that you find is important?
I think that the main thing that, again, this is all a journey and everybody, like, it's wherever you're at is perfect. But the one thing that has just always continued to show itself to me and be reinforced, it's at deep down, like deep down, even if it's like subtle, like really, really learning to trust yourself, trust your intuition, trust your, when you're feeling like a no, or when you're feeling like, hey, I really want this. It's a beautiful practice to start really honoring yourself first and allowing like more of those parts to come online, because it's just, we can get into these little, traps or rabbit holes to where we're kind of creating in someone else's reality because we're not honoring ourselves. And so I would say that is just the most profound thing that I've learned is that it's okay to be authentic. It's okay to be raw. It's okay to be vulnerable. It's okay if you want a messy cry. It's okay if you want to go take the day off and do that thing that your soul is calling you to do. It's like, what is your highest 10 out of 10? Because if we're subscribing to these things that are not our highest, we're sending out these messages that we're not worthy of it and that we don't believe that we can have and create this beautiful thing. And so it's just, again, a process of really just learning, because we are learning. We're here to learn. So it's just, when we can release the judgment of ourselves and just allow what's showing up and what is there for us to do, it just becomes quite more, it becomes a lot more easy, beautiful, flowy. So
yeah, but I love that description. So it's really about even your pain and your suffering, bringing that to a higher vibration as well, or just meeting it with that higher self. Yeah. Lovely. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. Is there, do you want to leave us with a practice, or just, you can, that was maybe the practice, what you just said, that can be the practice.
Yeah, I love it. I mean, I'm happy to guide a little meditation if we have time.
We have time.
Awesome. So yeah, we'll just do a quick little, it's just kind of presencing meditation, just grounding and connecting to your own essence. I love to do this one, and it just always brings me back. So you can either lay down, you can sit, whatever is most comfortable and feels best for you. And just closing your eyes, maybe placing a hand on the heart or the womb, wherever your body's kind of calling to you, maybe the stomach, maybe a hip, maybe there's just somewhere you need a little extra love and acknowledgement. And just starting to breathe in and out through your heart space. Just slow breaths, maybe a 4 or 5 second count. Just breathing in, acknowledging that pause in the breath, that space in between the inhale and the exhale. And noticing also this beautiful light surrounding you, this frequency of compassion and just the light of God, the love of all things. And just breathing that into the heart as well. Just breathing out any heaviness, letting the body relax. Maybe just simply saying, body, I love you. You're safe. And just allowing your heart space to continue getting brighter with this light, more expansive. Seeing this light just fill up your solar plexus, your stomach area, bringing presence and awareness to your solar plexus. And just as you breathe, seeing this light expand into the womb, the sacral chakra. Expanding further into the hips, the legs, your root. Maybe noticing somewhere that you are in nature, just anywhere you can plant your feet with intention is simply perfect as well, into the earth, into Mother Earth. Mother Earth loves to support, nurture, and just take our pain. And she just has this beautiful ability to transmute it into love. So just anything that already wants to be released, you don't even have to be fully aware of it. Just allowing the feet, the grounding of the feet, the roots growing out of your feet, just to release anything from the physical body, any emotions, beliefs, anything that doesn't serve you, just flowing out your feet with intention. And as you breathe, just allowing those roots in your feet to just ground down further, setting the intention to connect with the center of the planet, this heart chakra of Mother Earth. It's this beautiful golden love light. And just seeing this start to swirl up in a counterclockwise direction. Just repairing and filling up your Earth Star chakra below your feet. Swirling into the feet, just bringing nourishment and also just love, and also transmuting and clearing anything that's ready to go. Bringing it into the hips, the womb, into the stomach. Seeing this golden light fill up the heart. As you continue to breathe, noticing this light in the throat, just relaxing the shoulders as well. Filling up the head, the jaw, opening up that third eye and the forehead, the crown. Bringing your breath back to the heart. And just breathing, noticing that glowing, bright energy in the heart. And just expanding that light in your heart into the room that you're in. Into the city that you're in. Simply with intention is perfect. If you don't see it, just feel it. Setting the intention. Expanding out into the country that you're in. And just seeing your light, just lighting up the whole planet. And taking your energy and awareness to this I am presence, your higher self, this divine aspect of you, your truest, purest essence, connecting with him or her, this energy. Breathing into this. Just opening up the crown further, taking our energy all the way up past the universe, the multiverse, setting the intention and connecting with the heart of source, the heart of creation, noticing whatever frequencies come to mind, to your heart, this beautiful luminescent light, and just plugging your energy in with the heart of source as you breathe. And just seeing this light coming down through all the chakras, the crown, lighting up the third eye, the throat, the heart, stomach, expanding into the womb and the root. And just acknowledging that you're connected above and below, connected to your divine essence. And just spending the next moment connecting to this divine essence of yourself and being a receiver of anything, any messages. Maybe it's just silence. You're welcome to stay in this space, being a receiver, as long as you feel guided, this place of surrender in your body. And whenever you're ready, can bring the awareness back into the here and now. And just thanking your body. I love you. Thank you. Acknowledging how far you've come on your journey from when you started. Just expressing that love and gratitude and awareness around that. And just opening your eyes whenever you're ready.
Thank you, Amanda.
Welcome.
Yeah, that
my
was
pleasure.
Very pure and soft and innocent, really lovely. Thank you.
Anytime. You're welcome.
Yeah.
Thank you for allowing me to share this space with you today.
Yeah, it was lovely having you here. It was such a good conversation.
Yes, definitely was.
Okay. Yeah, this whole meditation just set me back to when I was a kid. I used to meditate. I think I was 12 when I started. And I used to naturally just send out this love to the whole planet. And I think as you get older, even though you practice being kind and generous, the heart does shrink, it becomes a little tighter and a little, not bitter, but a little tougher. And it was just nice to hear this, be fully loving and open, and thank you. And just feeling that light. It was very nourishing. Yeah.
So amazing.
Okay, so let's finish here. If you want to tell people where they can find you, what you're doing, any of your events or courses.
Yeah, absolutely. So the two main places that are probably the best places to find me are Instagram, which is just my name, and then my website, which is also my name. And I work with people one-on-one. So I do hold space in those one-on-one containers, and I have a community where I have different events each week, different live events. So I infuse the energy healing into yin yoga practice. So I teach that. Usually it's kind of about once a month. So for the yin yoga, but it's all archived. So there's a whole, body of classes that are in an online portal, and then different, things that are coming through. The beauty of this is it just gets to be organic and very flowy. So I do have, I don't know when this is going to air, but I have a free workshop event on the 27th of February. And if you're familiar with the gene keys, I am teaching a little class on getting started with the gene keys. Everybody's been reaching out about it, and it's just been so expansive in the last few months for me. So different things like that. So I would love to connect with anybody who feels guided and aligned to connect. That would be lovely. So
yeah, and I'll put everything in the show notes so people can find you easily, and it'll be out next Thursday. So before you start. Yeah. Awesome. Okay. Yeah, great.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Amanda. Thank you for being here. Thank you to all our listeners for staying with us to the end.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for having me.
Bye, everyone. I'm so chilled out from this practice.
I know, I feel the same way.
So thank you everyone for staying to the end of the podcast. I hope you enjoyed this conversation as much as I did. I really love doing these talks with these amazing people. And if you want to know more, just take a look in the show notes. There's plenty of links and ways to connect with either the guest or myself. If you want to work with us or find out more about us, just check out the information in the show notes. So I hope you have a wonderful weekend or week, and you'll be hearing from me next week. Bye.